Support for Nevada Week is provided by Senator William H. Hernstat, Cashman Equipment, De Castroverde Law Group, Valley Electric Association, and additional supporting sponsors.
Hello and welcome to Nevada Week. I'm your host, Casey Smith. Thank you very much for joining us. We're about to bring you a glimpse of a world that many people don't even know about, but that has captured the imagination of millions around the globe and the attention of a couple of casino companies here in Las Vegas. It's called esports. Esports has taken video games to unbelievable heights, both graphically in terms of technology and financially, as in an estimated 2018 revenue of almost $1 billion. As the name suggests, it's competitive on many different levels and in many different venues, from a friendly game between acquaintances to possibly being a demonstration sport in the 2024 Olympic Games. In fact, competitive video gaming will be a medal sport in the 2022 Asian Games. Joining us to explain how we have gone from Pong to $1 billion a year international sports league are four people who know basically what buttons to push, if you will. Lavelle Walker is the Executive Director of Interactive Gaming Development at MGM Resorts International. Robert Rippey is the Director of the Hospitality Lab at the International Gaming Institute at UNLV. Milo Ocampo is the President and co-founder of 8-Bit Esports here in Las Vegas. And Izzy Ocampo is an 8-Bit Esports team member. Thank you very much, all of you, for joining us. This is a fascinating show because this is one of those things where a lot of people don't know what they don't know about this. It really is incredible. So, Lavelle, I want to start with you. Now, esports is not a household phrase as of yet, but millions of people around the world participate, and MGM jumped right in with both feet, didn't they?
Yeah, that's right. We've made one of the larger leaps in this industry, I would say. We've invested a lot of money in our partner, Our Game, and we built a space inside of the Luxor called Esports Arena. We actually took the place of an existing nightclub. It was LAX. Took the club out, put the esports in. It's time for it's a new era in our business, and we made a huge statement by doing that.
And you just did that recently, and then I believe last 7 or 8 months, right?
Last year, at the end of last year. Yeah.
Okay, end of last year. And how's it gone so far?
I would say successful. We had one of the major influencers in a game called Fortnite, Ninja, actually participated, had a large event there. He had 660,000 viewers. He broke his old records, and it was all for charity, so it was extremely successful. About 300 people showed up to the venue for the event as well.
And there's a lot of money in this. We're going to get to that in a minute, but there's actually a class, Mr. Rippey. Shall we call you Professor?
Robert's fine.
Robert's fine. There's a class at UNLV about this.
Yes.
I mean, it's gotten to a level where you actually are teaching people how to integrate it with casino and hospitality, correct?
Yeah, I'm part of the International Gaming Institute, and we've always been on a mission to serve our industry, like Lavelle's company and the others here. And so a couple of years ago, the idea was, why don't we look at this paradigm of esports and try to understand how it integrates into their business model, and maybe we can be of service, do research, train students, and give those gamer students a class to take, the first one of its kind, I think, at any major university.
Now, you don't teach them how to play the games, right? You teach them how to integrate them into business, correct?
Correct.
Right.
So they are, to begin with, they are already gamers.
They already know what they're doing. I had a feeling, yeah. It is amazing. Milo, you've been doing this since you were how old?
I've been doing this since I was 13.
And who taught you how to do this, or did you just pick it up because you just liked it?
So I grew up in the Philippines in a LAN center, actually, with my dad. So he was well known in the Street Fighter community back in the 90s. So I actually grew up in an arcade and in a LAN center. So I've been gaming my entire life.
And what is it that attracts people to this? Is it the games themselves? Is it the competition, the money, just the level of sport, the camaraderie?
There's a lot of depth when it comes to esports. So some do it for the community, some do it to fill the competitive need, some do it to pass time. But personally, I do it for the competition and for the community.
Okay, and you run a business.
Yeah.
Manner of speaking, right?
Yeah, but mostly it is for the friends.
Okay, and Izzy, you are a gamer, okay, and that's the proper term, correct? Okay,
yes.
And why do you do it?
Well, to be honest with you, it started off as peer pressure. Coming from a family of gamers as well,
Okay.
you know, I kind of just wanted a way to bond with my brothers. I wanted a way to kind of fit in, spend some time with them. But obviously, I'm not going to bring them over to what I actually wanted to do or what I thought I wanted to do. So what started as peer pressure became one of my greatest passions, and it turned into something that became almost purpose to me, to serve a community full of people that are like-minded, to find my new passion, which is photography, which I will establish into a business, to serve my competitive drive, things like that.
When you say serve a community, I mean, there's a huge amount of people just in our community that are into this, aren't there?
Yes, 8-Bit has 1,200 active members in its community, each of which I meet every week and on our bigger scale events, and I'm also the captain of one of our competitive teams, Rocket League.
And when you meet, do you play games or you just discuss strategy or how to further the sport?
All of the
All
above.
of the above. I mean, it's fascinating. It's like I said, one of those things a lot of people didn't know they didn't know. Where did this get started? Anybody? Robert?
So it evolved.
Okay.
It didn't just start. So gaming, of course, has been around generations. And video gaming began roughly around the 1980s with Pong, right? We remember Pong.
We remember Pong, don't we?
Ping pong game you played on TV.
Exactly.
And that kind of, in many sense, was the launch of video games in your home, which evolved to competing against your friends and then your community. But what we're talking about today, esports, and this kind of professionalized, highly competitive, where there's prize money and sponsorship and these big organizations, this is a phenomenon of probably the last decade where it has hit this kind of growth curve. It started very grassroots in foreign countries. Actually, if you look at South Korea, is probably where you could say gave birth to it, in the LAN centers like Milo was talking about before, where young people would just start competing against each other. Then they had to compete in tournaments, and that grew. And then that gave us what we have today, which are global tournaments, global competitions, and amazing facilities like Lavelle's company has built.
And a lot of people do it simply for the sport, but as I brought up a couple times now, I want to discuss it now. There's money in this, and there is a substantial amount of money in this, which is a good reason that MGM got involved, right?
Yep.
Give us an idea of, is there a handle like there is in sports betting?
It's actually a pretty complex ecosystem. Clearly, you have the fans. We talked a little bit about that. But you also have platform providers like Twitch, ESPN, Turner, who broadcast. You have the teams, you have the leagues, you have influencers. There's a lot that goes into this. Most of the money actually comes on the sponsorship side of this. So you quoted $1 billion number. It's mostly coming from non-endemic sponsors putting money into this ecosystem because they're targeting a clientele that's part of a demographic that they can't talk to through any other means. So for us, it's mostly about where are we fitting in. And the arena standpoint, from the event standpoint, from our assets, that seems like the natural fit for MGM. Just to leverage our space as it exists today.
And arena and event are good operative words. We have some video we'd like to roll right now to give the viewers just an idea of some of the things that go on in these events, in these arenas, because it's state of the art. I mean, this is your this is at the Luxor?
Yes, this is at the Luxor. This is the esports arena.
Okay, and people are getting ready to compete now. The screens down there where the empty chairs, is that where they compete?
That is, yes, that's the ground floor level. There's actually a stage that they showed above. Yep, that's a shot of the stage. This is actually the Ninja event that I brought up a little earlier.
Okay, and you have play-by-play announcers involved, correct? And these are the combatants or the competitors. And it gets actually it looks kind of calm at the moment, but as these games pick up, it gets the audience gets into it and everybody gets into it.
Absolutely, Milo could actually speak to this. It's just massive concentration, so it doesn't seem lively from their point of view, but the crowds, it is.
And here we go. We've obviously there we go. So Milo, what's that? Is that the payoff at this point, at least for you, when you win, compete?
So, for instance, Evo happened this recently. And Evo is one of the most historic and one of the most veteran tournament circuits in the world. Okay. So to win, the prize money for Evo isn't as competitive as it used to be, because now with more circuits and more non-endemic sponsors coming in. So really, when you take a tournament like that, you're competing for pride and honor. So again, esports is still at its grassroots level. So a lot of people can't touch the prize pools or the the sponsorships that you get. So really it's about just overcoming and honing a skill.
Is there one league? Is there one governing body, or is it a lot of different leagues and a lot of organizations that combine for this whole thing?
Right now, it's a lot of different organizations and a lot of different leagues. The publishers for the games themselves right now are the only ones that are allowed to run circuits, which is why this billion-dollar industry is only for like the top-level play. And that's really the goal for a lot of players, to get to that level, to get sponsored, to play for a team.
So if I put it, use a metaphor of, let's say, baseball, from major league to AAA, minor leagues, to all the way down to little league, it's all levels, right?
Right.
Okay. So how much does it cost to participate in this? And I'll go to Izzy, because you're one of the gamers, and I know Milo is too. But is there a cost to this? Is it recreational, or is it intense?
It, again, has very many different levels. There is the casual community level, where you just show up to meetings, events, where you can play for fun, maybe some arbitrary prize like some swag or unrelated to the game. Then we have the competitive level, where you pay venue fees, where you pay participation fees, and then you have prize pools that pay off for your hard work. But most of all, it's just what you get out, what you want to put in. For me, while I am the manager and captain of some of my competitive teams, I very much enjoy the casual aspect of gaming, in which I can just meet people and enjoy myself.
Now, do you play at home too?
Oh, of course.
You can play on your computer at home, and then much like then I'll use the poker metaphor, where people get on their computer and play poker, and then they'll go to the casino or something. Have you competed, let's say, at the Luxor, in that arena?
Not quite, but our teams definitely have.
Okay, and is that the goal? That's one of the goals of the.
One of the goals is to be part of this entire ecosystem in which we are putting out a business as well. We want to have our own convention, which we actually have a Kickstarter for, called Land Vegas.
Okay.
We want to be a part of the ecosystem, we want to be a part of the business, and we want to make a name for ourselves as well.
Now, are you tied in, is 8-Bit tied in with UNLV? To a certain extent. Okay, so and I understand that UNLV and Boise State actually faced off during. There we go. Something tells me we might have won against. They faced off against Boise State when the Mountain West basketball tournaments were here. Correct?
Yes.
How did that go?
It was amazing. It was the first ever major collegiate sports conference to sponsor a sports competition. And it was a great insight on the part of the Mountain West Conference to put this kind of show match together and to run it concurrently with the basketball championships. So we had to field a team, and 8-Bit was our natural team, and went to Milo, and they were like, yeah, of course we want to do this. So they actually became the Runnin' Rebels team to face off against Boise State's, and Boise State's team is actually a varsity team. That's part of their athletic infrastructure.
Basically. Right?
And so we faced them off in 3 games and won, which was an extraordinary event.
That's good. And that had to feel good. I mean,
one of the best nights of my life.
Definitely. Okay, well that's good. It astounds me, and I think a lot of people that it's gotten to this point. Now, you say this was the first one.
Yes.
Are we looking for more?
I think you will see a lot more. You'll see many of the other conferences already. The Pac-12 is moving in that direction, the SEC, all these big conferences. In fact, today, there's over 50 major universities that offer varsity level esports teams, and many of those schools are offering scholarships.
Okay, I was just going to ask that.
Come to college and play esports.
Okay, it's gotten to that point.
Yeah.
That they actually they pay. It's pay to play. I mean, just like any other sport. I mean, it's amazing, and of course, Lavelle, that's just music to your ears, I'm sure, right?
Absolutely. In fact, the word community keeps coming up. We are looking for ways to just give back to this community. And the arena obviously is one offering. We have Level Up at MGM Grand. That's another offering of that. But Evo actually was an event that we threw. So any way that we can give back and try to stimulate this ecosystem, that's the answers.
Okay. For people who, let's back up for a second, because we talked about Pong, Mario Brothers or something. Are there games like that just anybody can play? Because some of these games are so intense, first of all, and look so complicated. Someone like myself who would be very intimidated, is there an entry-level way to get into this, Milo?
There is, and that's our goal at 8-Bit Esports. Really, so during the Mountain West, a question that was asked often was, how do we get into esports? How do we, start? It is intimidating, but the community in itself is very welcoming. And my advice that I would give to anybody really would be to go to any event, and there's a ton here in Vegas. Go to any event, and someone will teach you how to play, and you will have the time of your life.
Now, I understand some of these teams, collegiate and independent, actually have coaches. They do have coaches. They have support staff. And I understand they also have medical staff. Are there injuries involved in this?
Oh, for sure. Milo personally has been laying off games recently because he's been suffering a lot on his upper arm. We actually have gaming sleeves and compression wear that help our form and ensure that we can have the stamina that it takes to continue playing.
Stamina, is it mainly carpal tunnel, things like that? Okay. So, and has there been any studies done on how the effect of eyes staring into the computer all the time? I mean, because that at one point that came up, I remember.
There's a lot of research on video game activity and the physiological effects.
Right.
I mean, that's been going on for decades. And of course, there are impacts if you stay at a fixed distance staring at a screen. But not particularly that I'm aware of relative to esports, more about just consoles and monitors and staying fixed distance. And
we should mention that most of the games are pretty violent. They really are. Now, I'm not all of them, but there are. I believe Fortnite is a bit violent. Is that?
It's soft violence.
Soft violence. Okay.
Cartoony. It's playful.
Okay.
It's one of the reasons why it's as popular as it is.
So maybe it's the perception of violence. Would that be
I
more
agree.
of a fair statement?
I think there's a perception that video games are violent, and it's really not. Doesn't hold true. There are some categories of games that have different levels of violence, from soft violence, like Lavelle was talking about, to fairly graphic violence. Then there are other games that have no violence. The game Hearthstone, which is a very, very popular video game, is basically a card game. Fantasy-type card game. There's no violence in the game. It's a strategy game.
Are these tied into the games that you buy off the shelves? I'm trying to remember. There's been a lot of military-type games. Is that all tied in like that too?
Yeah. So Call of Duty. So military-style games like Call of Duty and Counter-Strike. Those are one of the most veteran games in the world. So those are very violent, but at the same time, esports and video games are like movies. There is a rating system to keep it friendly, to keep it filtered, to tell parents which games to buy.
Has that worked out pretty well, you believe?
Yeah.
Is there an age limit to play?
At the arena, that there is if you're going to compete. If you compete over the age of 16, you do need somebody at 21 or older there to be there with you as a chaperone.
Okay.
So we do have restrictions inside the casino when it comes to the level of competing.
How has it been received by the rest of the community? Do you get a lot of people coming going, what is this? I mean,
yeah, absolutely. So as Milo was saying, education is a big piece of what we're trying to do as MGM. We're starting to strategize around these type of things as well, both internally and externally, as you can imagine. But it's been good for us to this point. We do need to get better at our communication to this community, though, and we need to learn. And these are things that, as a culture, a hospitality culture, and as a city, that we need to start to embrace. Is coming fast.
I'd also like to address the culture of the activity of the sport, if you will, because without a governing body, let's say the Board of Governors or the owners, the NFL, let's say, there's a governing body that even if you're not associated with the NFL, you kind of follow those guidelines. There really are no guidelines, are there? In terms of international guidelines of the culture and the way things should be?
Well, one of the issues, and Milo mentioned it before, publishers. So there's a difference between football, baseball, soccer, and video gaming. And publishers own the game. Yeah. Nobody owns football.
Right.
So they have the rights to every use of that game, the way it's played in tournaments, et cetera. So that adds an element to each game that is not present in traditional sports. And so consequently, I think that has implications of creating a body over all of it when there are lots of people who own pieces of it. Yeah. You know, it would have to reach across privately owned property, you know, the game intellectual property. And that's challenging. I mean, there's movement, there's an organization that's working towards establishing standards of fair play and fairness and avoiding cheating and things like that. Mm-hmm. But you're still dealing with this issue of private property that's owned by companies.
You know, I use football as a metaphor in this because Jerry Jones from the Dallas Cowboys and Robert Kraft have actually invested in esports. Robert Kraft, the owner of the Patriots, of course, two of the preeminent sports teams in all of the world. And they seem very, very interested in this. And it's probably not just because they like video games. It all comes down to money, right? I mean, it really does. Do you see a point to where this sport would overtake, at least in audience appeal and in revenue, the NFL? Anyone?
Well, it's a good question. I think that if you look at the size of their generation, this is a very big generation. It's the biggest generation in the United States right now.
Millennials. Right?
And as it continues to grow and their economic power continues to grow, this is a form of entertainment that they really like. So you'd have to say, is it going to overtake it? Well, it certainly has a chance.
If you want to get online to play, how much does it cost?
Most games are free to play, but there are such as in-app purchases in mobile games. There are additional contents that you could buy.
So, and is there an age limit for most of these games? I mean, it's really kind of hard to tell. It's like a rating system that you can't really tell who's logging on, right?
What I've noticed with Fortnite being the most recent esport to pop up, we have very, very young people playing. And when we have our bigger events, such as when we hosted the Smash tournaments at Level Up, we noticed that people ranging from age 10 to like 30 were coming. So.
One of the issues that has been brought up about esports in general and video gaming is it keeps people indoors and it keeps young people glued to a computer screen rather than going out and exercising and seeing more of the world. And I'm sure you've heard this before. What's the take on that? Is there an issue there, or is this more or less a phase and they'll move on to going to college and more of a part of their life? And
what's great about what we do is that we actually encourage the opposite. We encourage people to come out and play in person, to discuss, have that actual connection opposed to hiding behind the computer screen. But on the other hand, I have made a very fair amount of people, I've made a very fair amount of friends over this sport, over this passion. We'd meet in person, we'd play online, and honestly, it's kind of difficult to coordinate a time for all of us to meet in person and hang out, being that millennials are working a lot more, and it's really difficult with our school schedules, but it's really easy to get together at the end of the night for an hour to play a game.
it's a social thing.
Yeah.
I read an article where you were called for quite a while a girl gamer.
Yes.
And when you look at the video, and I've never been to one of these, I have to admit, and I'm going. I'm definitely. I'm intrigued. There seems to be a lot of guys playing. Are you unique at being a female?
Well, you see, I used to value that uniqueness. I used to value the fact that I was so uncommonly a female in this field, but I've used my leverage as a female gamer to be more inclusive to them. And cycling a little bit back to you saying violence in video games, I actually wrote a paper on this, in that violence can perpetuate stereotypes not only against women, but against men as well. We have very sexist and over-exaggerated, sometimes over-sexualized character design, and that is one of the changes that I want to see in this. If we have a more realistic sample of people, because I hate to tell you this, guys, but girls are gamers too.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, of course. I would hope to see change in character design. I hope to see more female protagonists, and I hope to see more people coming to events despite their age, their gender, or how they look. All that matters is that you play games. It doesn't even matter which game. You want to play Pong? Come on.
Something that's a little bit more my speed, I guess, right?
So it's all about inclusivity for me, and that's what I'm trying to promote. And we're starting to see change, and that's what's really important. From me being maybe the 1 in 50 people in the room that's a female, I am now maybe 1 in 5, and soon I'll be 1 in 3, and eventually I'll be 1 in 1.
We're almost out of time. I'm just curious, do either one of you two see this as a career, making your entire living?
Definitely. I've been in esports for the last 13 years, and I've actually helped set up the infrastructure for the entire nation in terms of like college level esports. And I've worked with the biggest publishers, and honestly, once I graduate UNLV, I plan to stay in esports for the rest of my life.
If nothing else, as a consultant.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I understand that there is money in that. Thank you all very much. This has been very intriguing, and I probably failed to ask some questions that I should have, but thank you very much. I think it's been an education. for all of us. Thank you. We would like to thank our guests once again, Lavelle Walker, Executive Director of Interactive Gaming Development at MGM Resorts, Robert Rippey from the International Gaming Institute at UNLV, Milo Ocampo, you'll hear from him later, of course, he'll be famous, President and co-founder of 8-Bit Esports here in Las Vegas, and his sister Izzy Ocampo, who is also going to be famous, 8-Bit sports team member, photographer, and all-around advocate, I would say. If you'd like to learn more about what we've talked about, go to vegaspbs.org. Well, that's it for this edition of Nevada Week. I'm Casey Smith. Thank you very much for spending part of your Nevada Week with us. We'll see you next time.